Peace everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Crystal Bell and I am an educator, scholar, and life coach. Today I'm back with another exciting video, and this video is about my favorite books. Now, if you know me for real, you know that I am a book lover. I have always been a book lover, and I actually read every single day. It's a part of my radical self-care practice. And so I thought to myself today that it would be a great idea to share some of my favorite books with you. Let's get right into it. So let's get into it. Some of my favorite books. Now, once you're a bookworm, it's really hard to choose a certain amount of books as your favorite. But I would say I've incorporated some oldies but goodies, and also just some new things that I've been reading that I really appreciate. I'm also drinking my tea. How many of you are tea lovers? So I drink a lot of tea throughout the day. I also drink a lot of water, and I practice intermittent fasting. If you want to know more about my intermittent fasting, you can check out my video, which is about how to be successful on the keto diet. Check it out right there. And that video will really help those of you who are trying to lose weight, trying to find a new lifestyle to support your wellness goals. All right, so back to the books. So I'll share some oldies but goodies. So I have 5 books here. So first I'll start with the oldies. The first book I'm going to share with you is Beloved by Toni Morrison. So Toni Morrison is actually my favorite author, period. She is the only author who I have read everything she's ever written. I cannot say that about any author, and I am a book lover and I love to read. But Toni Morrison, man, she just really changed my life. And I think the amazing thing about Toni Morrison and I is that I wasn't taught Toni Morrison in school. I came upon Toni Morrison as a teenager working in a library, my first job, and the section that I covered was M through Z. And so M started with the mix and I can go right, and then it went to Morrison. And so as I was shelving these books, I started seeing all of Toni Morrison's books, and I remember that Oprah Winfrey kept featuring her books on her show, right? And Oprah was everything at that time. So this is Beloved, and Beloved is just a story of, it's actually a love story about 2 people who were formerly enslaved who are trying to love one another. I'll just say that. And essentially it paints the picture of how the trajectory of slavery and the institution of slavery greatly harmed Black love, still harms Black love, and the post-traumatic stress that is connected to slavery still impacts our relationships, how we love one another, how we parent. And this book just really goes there. I mean, the characters are just powerful and brilliant, and the language and the imagery. There's particularly one image in the book that I will share, and it is of a mother who reveals that she had to take her children's lives so that they wouldn't be enslaved, right? That was her thinking, that she would rather her young children be dead than to be slaves, right? Understanding the harms of the institution of slavery and children being born into slavery and what that means. But she just touches on everything: the institution of slavery, the impact on our psyches, how it impacted love, this idea of, infanticide, right? What would it mean to kill your own children? And I later found out a few years ago that there was another case that happened that inspired Toni Morrison to write Beloved, like a real life case of a mother who killed her child. And I can't recall the case now, but I will try to find it, and when I do, I will probably link it in another video. But yeah, Beloved, if you have not read it, by Toni Morrison, everything. It's a bit of historical fiction and fantasy and poetic prose, and all things good. Speaking of Toni Morrison, I'm reading Paradise right now, and Paradise is one of the few Toni Morrison books that I had not read. Paradise is actually a story of a town that was founded by Black people for Black people only, and how they basically try to make their own laws and their own ways of knowing and being to live in the United States. So it is definitely a critique on race and racism in America, and I'm almost done, and it's everything. And this will be the last Toni book. This is the last one that I have never read. More current. So I'm also reading a beautiful composition of Broken, and this is by R.H. Sin. He is a relatively new poet. I discovered him on Instagram. He writes a lot about love and heartbreak, and what I love about his writing is that the poems are really short and like really concise, and it just punches you in the whole soul, and you can really feel it. And what I love about his poetry is I'm also a poet, and I've been experimenting a lot with like micro poetry, flash poetry, and so just having this model has been great because I've been writing like that in the past few years. And it's amazing to see how my poetry has shifted as I become more of an adult. So I highly recommend the beautiful composition of Broken. He's also a New York Times bestseller. Another oldie but goodie is Derek Bell's The Late Great Faces at the Bottom of the Well. Derek Bell, for those of you who don't know, is one of the founding fathers of critical race theory, which is currently under attack in the United States. Critical race theory is essentially a legal theory that was devised by indigenous, Black, Latinx scholars to basically push back on how the laws perpetuate racism and reinforce the status quo. And that if we really want to change the world, we have to start by changing the laws. Critical race theory, thanks to Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings, who wrote the article, Just What is Critical Race Theory and What is It Doing in a Nice Field Like Education? She published that piece in 1998, started bringing the critical race theory lens into education, which obviously it always should be in that space. My book that I'm working on right now, Start with Radical Love, Developing Social Justice Educators in the 21st Century, touches a lot on the intersections between critical race theory and this social justice education framework that I'm reimagining to include heart healing and love at the center, radical love at the center. So that's where I am on my writing journey, and I've been going back to Derek Bell and really thinking of how we can change the world really from the laws, like down to the laws, like reimagining what the laws look like and sound like, and making our laws more inclusive, which will then trickle down to spaces like education, hopefully. So what's interesting about this book is it's called Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism. So the first tenet of critical race theory is accepting that racism is permanent in the United States because of how the United States came to be, right? Through the institution of slavery, through that free labor, right, for centuries, which then forms the economic backbone of the United States that still benefits the social construction of whiteness or white supremacy, okay? So if you're white, you do benefit from racism, right? So what can you do to sort of push back? How can you share the wealth, right, with your fellow Black and Indigenous people of color? That's the question. So I highly recommend Faces at the Bottom of the Well if you're really trying to get a deep critical race theory analysis. And also, Derek Bell is also telling stories. So there's a counter storytelling method, which is another tenet of critical race theory, that telling our own stories is a form of disrupting the status quo and inserting ourselves into history, so to speak, which is true. And last but certainly not least, I have the book Sacred Woman, and this is by Queen Afua, A Guide to Healing the Feminine Body, Mind, and Spirit. So, I mean, I've been going through this book for a few months. I love some of the traditional medicinal healing practices that are shared. I am a traditionalist. I grew up in a household where my mom used a lot of home remedies all the time. You guys will notice that I talk about my mom a lot because she's pretty much like a Renaissance woman. So my mom was always using home remedies. We would use a home remedy before we went to the hospital or something, or the doctor, unless it was like an emergency, and we were, knock on wood, we were never sick or anything like that. So I appreciate a lot of what it shares around foods to put in your body, mostly vegan foods, all vegan foods actually. What does it mean to go fasting? And I practice intermittent fasting. And then also there's a lot of discussion of like doing altar work. So that's a spiritual side. So I love that this book is like a full radical self-care framework of like the use of essential oils and, you know, praying to your ancestors and spirituality and moving your body, and also just taking control, women especially, of our cycles and healing our bodies. I love it. So those are my top 5. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have also linked each of the books in the description box in case you're interested in checking out any of these books. As always, you can support me on my Patreon page where I share more information about my daily life, weekly microblogs, behind the scenes, audio meditations, specialized video lessons, all that good stuff. And that is over on patreon.com/selflovelife101. You can also follow me on Instagram at selflovelife101 or my personal page at crystalisbell. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more updates. And I'll see you next time. Peace.